we get sent out a lot to do interviews. Not all the time, but that's sort of the bread and butter stuff. I'm going to start with a mistake that I made that I learned a lot from. I don't have tape, unfortunately. I wish I had the A and the B, the before and the after. But it's just a small story, but it sticks in my mind, and I think there's a reason. So it was one of the first little mini pieces that I was asked to do when I got a 3-month gig at the B. They let me out from the technician's side, and so I was on a kind of trial run as a producer for 3 months. So I want to try and do well. So I was the producer of the program I was working for. Asked me to go out and do a 3-minute piece for a magazine program on a rock musician in London, England, who had a hit single and blah, blah, blah. Totally standard assignment. But still, there it was. So off I go, and Buddy Boy is in his apartment somewhere in London. I meet him and I record, I forget, 20 minutes, half an hour maybe. It's reasonably fluent. Did an interview with this fellow and came back and started listening to it and trying to edit it and make something out of it. And it was, I almost feel the heat of my, the sweat, because I'm thinking, I've got the headphones on and my producer's over there, and I sort of want to deliver a really good piece. And I think, there's nothing here. Like, well, there's not nothing, but there's nothing much here. Like, he's just talking about this music that he's done. He's talking about it, and he's saying what he thinks about it, and he's responding to my questions, and but it's kind of all a bit like this. It's just like that. 15, 18 minutes of this. So what's wrong with it? And I'm thinking, what's wrong with this? Because no one tells you anything. I mean, you sink or swim. We don't have boot camps in those days. I mean, just go out and do it, and then you say, okay, what did you get? So I think, geez, what? And then I had this penny drop moment. I thought, you're going to laugh at this now. I didn't. I went there. He had a keyboard in his apartment. I didn't get him doing anything. This is a musician. I came back with nothing by way of sound or anything, just to him talking. Yeah. So that was a big moment, actually. And then the next thing that happened was, what am I going to do about it? I can't edit this stuff. This isn't going to make it. So then I thought that for a while. Then I realized he's only cab ride away. I have to go back. I have to go back. I have to try again. So I did. And I just did the most rudimentary thing. Just got him to play something, do something, show me a few things, maybe an album that he'd done, but I forget now. But I got him to do some stuff anyway. And we actually heard a bit of his music in the context of, not just putting the record on, it was a vinyl, but there was action anyway. And out of that, I made a 3-minute thing, which got on the radio, and they renewed my 3-month gig, right? So the lesson, how do you turn it into, I did an interview. I didn't think about making it into any kind of a scene. I didn't think about trying to figure out how to make action happen. I didn't think about using the props, if you want to call it that, which were in his apartment, like his keyboard or anything, stuff, anything. I didn't think of any of that to start with. But now ever since then, of course, I do. So I'm just offering that. I'm sure you know a lot of this stuff, but that's okay. We're starting at the beginning. So the first tape example that I want to play, I want to warn you, it's a little gruesome. Tanya, I'm going to blame Tanya for this. She likes this clip. This is a very powerful scene, or scenes, isn't it? But but it is a little hairy. We take you now to, okay, I'll back up. 1979, we don't need all the history, but you may have heard of Idi Amin in Uganda. Okay. You probably know that in the spring of '79, after about 8 years of being dictator in Uganda, and killing a lot of people, a lot. He was overthrown by the Tanzanian army who came up from the south, and the Tanzanians just threw out. I mean, it happened roughly in April, late April, I think, of 1979. I was actually at the time in Rhodesia. We'll go there after that, doing some work for Sunday Morning, CBC program Sunday Morning, which had just started in those days. Well, actually, it was a few years in by 1979. Anyway, and I got the call from Toronto to get to Kampala, get there now, because this coup had just happened, and I wasn't planning to go there. I was planning to finish my gig in what was then Rhodesia and come back. Actually, it's not strictly true. I was planning to have a honeymoon. Anyway, there is an offstage voice in the clip you'll hear, which is actually a young woman who's, at the time, who's my wife. She was with me, but we just got married and we hadn't had a honeymoon, and we were going to go to Cape Town for a honeymoon where Deb had a relative. And all of a sudden, this happened in Uganda to the north. So Starowitz, telexed or whatever and said, get there. So by roundabout routes, it wasn't easy to get from Rhodesia to Uganda because of the politics, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It involved going all around the houses, Nairobi, hiring a small plane and a pilot to fly us into the landing strip in Entebbe, bribing my way in past Tanzanian soldiers with a pack of cigarettes, because, not bribing, but getting, because they didn't know who the hell I was. I might have been a Rhodesian spy or God knows what. Anyway, by hook or by crook, I managed to get into Kampala, driving in from the airport past the remnants of Amin's soldiers who'd been trying to get the hell out, burning tanks, cars crashed, because a lot of the high-ups in the government had these official cars, but they had no idea how to drive them. And the drivers were off in the bush, and the guys tried to drive them themselves, and they crashed the cars. So all of that nonsense. And then in Kampala itself, no civil government at all. I've never been to a place before or since, actually, where they completely looted every store, it was just empty, broken glass everywhere, blah, blah, blah. Order was being kept by the Tanzanian army soldiers. Anyway, so I'm steering us now to a scene from the doc that I made out of that experience. Thanks to the focused ingenuity of the reporter for the National Enquirer, always bless the National Enquirer. He knew what he wanted. He wanted a person who had survived Idi Amin's death cells, and he found one. And you'll hear him now. His name was the Reverend William George Luquia. And I believe his crime that got him into jail, he was one of the very few survivors who made it out, or at least lived to tell the tale. I think his crime was to park his car in the parking spot of the Apollo Hilton Hotel in Kampala that happened to be assigned to Idi Amin's people, himself and others. So for that, I believe he was put in the death cells. He was a minister of the church. Whether that helped him survive, I really don't know. Anyway, the TV people interviewed, all of them interviewed this guy. I mean, they'd found, you know how it goes, right? The scrum. Like, they found somebody. God, we found a guy who survived, right? So all NBC, BBC, CTV, CBC, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's out there getting their clips from this guy who's standing outside this innocuous building. It just looks like any building. It was called the State Research Bureau, which is a fabulous euphemism for a place that was full of killing. Anyway, so I don't know why. Maybe the cameras in those days didn't cope very well with darkness, because there was a dungeon involved. I don't know. All I know was that the TV people outside did their stuff with this guy and then went off, presumably to find another part of the story. And you know how radio always gets, well, has everybody in TV finished now, right? Okay, can I have my interview now? You know how this goes, right? And because if you want to interview someone in TV, get down because you want your mic close, right? And then the TV guys like this, they want to get down, so you might do an interview in a supplicant position like this because the camera got to go over the top, and so radio is the total bottom of the totem pole in these situations. However, nobody said to Laquia the obvious question, well, I don't know why. Can we go inside? Can we see where you were kept for those 3 months that you were? And he said, yes, absolutely. Let me take you inside. So we did. And I just taped, trying to turn an interview with this fellow into scenes. It wasn't terribly difficult, really, I suppose. Here it comes, anyway.
Where are we now, Reverend? Where are we going now?
We are going to the office, to the room where I was kept.
And the first thing that strikes me is the smell in here.
The smelling, that's right. Because I think some dead bodies some people died here and they were collected later on, but the place is not yet washed. So that's why it has a lot of smell. This was the cell where I stayed for This is the one.
This is the very cell that you were in?
Yes, this is the very cell I was in. And that was the place where we used to pack dead bodies, that particular place. There was a time when it went right up here.
What, dead bodies?
Dead bodies.
Piled as high as the ceiling?
High, yes. As high as the ceiling.
And you had to live with those?
Oh, yes. I was sleeping here. And we were about, that time it was about 30 who died. We packed them on this side. And then here we had shirts of dead people. We would pack them here because when you are going for killing, you don't go with a shirt.
They take your clothes off you before you go for killing?
They take only the shirt off. So we used to pack the shirts here. And then that was all. They would come with a list. And then they would call out the list. Say so-and-so, so-and-so, up to the number they want. Then they take you out without your shirts. Then that is the end of you. You go and you die. And that the killing was through hammering.
How was the hammering done?
Well, they start just using a hand by somebody picking up a hammer, and it beats you the back part of your head, then this side of the head, then this one, and then in case you are still alive, then they break the front of your head, and you die.
You saw that?
Well, we saw that. We actually saw that.
Is that blood on the floor?
Yes, this is blood on the floor. I think these are people who are murdered. You can see even the remains of their head there.
The remains of their head?
The remains of the hair of their head. In fact, this one here, you can see that one there. That one belonged to a boy who was brought from Busia. That shirt, that little bit of shirt, belonged to him. They brought him here thinking that he was a gorilla when he was just a student going into Kenya.
How long did he last here?
He was only 2 days here, then they killed him. Only 2 days here. We could see the other place if you like.
What are these corridors? This is totally strewn with rubbish and paper, and there's a rocket there. Look at that.
I think so.
We're going to where? What's this place called? We're descending some stairs now into a very dark area.
We are going now to the basement itself, where it is a storehouse for those to be murdered.
Okay.
But the smell is so bad, it makes me sick. You see?
It's very dark. Let's just have a small torch.
It's very, very, very
Come on through and be careful where you tread.
And here, you see?
Do you think they have all the bodies out now?
I think the bodies are not here, no? Because, as we can see with the torch, there is nothing now. Look at this.
What's on the floor? Let's have a look.
What is it? Yes, pieces of shoes. There's shoes there. And I think they broke this door. Yes, it was broken in. You see? This was where killing was done.
Just look at this.
Yes.
People were killed in this room up until how long ago?
Well, up to when I was released, they were being killed.
Is that a couple of weeks or what?
That is about 2 weeks from today, since the Tanzanians came.
8 years of killing in this room?
Yes, 8 years of killing in this room, yes.
Well, maybe we should leave.
Oh, that's all right.
So it was pretty heavy stuff, but any comments, thoughts, questions? Yeah, please.
A question.
Yes, please.
Why do you think he wanted to go back in there with you? I'm just
Why?
curious. Well, he just sat. He didn't
Yeah.
like. It was 2 weeks later, so
Yes.
I'm just.
I can only assume that he wanted to bear witness to, 3 months of his life, to show me something of what had happened. I don't know. What do you think?
No,
I think
yeah,
you may
I just-
think something.
I don't know. He seemed like detached from it in a way, and
I see.
like it had been so soon after, and I guess you think, I don't know, you would never be, a lot of people wouldn't be in that situation, but wanting to go back in there and relive all that, I just wondered about if you'd thought about that.
I can only assume that here's a visitor. How will you tell this to the outside world? What happened? I don't know. Maybe he felt that the TV people didn't get it. I don't know. Maybe if I were in his shoes and if I had the emotional strength to do that, I would do that too. I would want people to see. Let me know. Tell the world what happened here. Yeah. He's also a minister of the church, and I think that perhaps plays into it in the sense that his tone is very controlled and very, he certainly, he doesn't sound, he is who he is, but he sounds very calm in a way. Perhaps that's surprising. But it doesn't surprise me, actually, in a way, because, he's maybe overdoing the church thing, but he's life, death, the meaning of, he has a perspective on things and probably quite educated as well. Yeah, I don't know. He was quite keen to show me. He wanted, you hear it, he said, I didn't even know, frankly, where the dungeon was, because he says, you can hear him, we can go and see the other room, he actually leads me to the other room. I had no idea where it was. Just knew that in this building, things had happened, that's all. But any other quick, I've got a few, yeah.
I was going to ask, that's an unbelievable circumstance and what you're witnessing, but what part of you was there as a human being witnessing someone else's experience of suffering, and what part of you was saying, this is a good question, it's going to get me good tape? That might sound like a heartless question, I don't mean that in any way or form, but you're there as a professional.
Yeah.
And I wondered, some of the questions you asked did get him to be extremely descriptive. Were
Yes.
you aware that you were doing that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Totally. I'm in all these situations, every time I go out, I'm thinking, how can I transmit to a listener what I am seeing and what they can't see unless I make it somehow try and transmit these. So, for example, as you heard, you know this perfectly well, people will say exactly what he said. The bodies were right up to here. Right up to here. Well, I see it, he sees it, everybody knows. If you listener can't see it, what is here? Here has no picture. Close your eyes and say the word here. What's that? Nothing. So that's nothing. And it's a huge problem at that moment in this interview because he's describing, and here it means the ceiling, actually. So I have to say, you heard it, up to the ceiling. Yes, up to the ceiling. So now we've got a picture at least, right? So I'm constantly, your job, my job, your job, everybody's job out there is to, in the very least, transmit the pictures somehow or try and, what am I seeing? You're the witness for the listener. The blood on the floor, appalling looking stuff. And frankly, I couldn't see, when he said the remains of the head, it was horrible. But it wasn't that at all, because it was his accent. And I had to get that clear. And he did make it clear. The hair on the head, not the actual skull fractured, the bits of bone and stuff like that. So, that's a detail. What am I seeing? What is it? The shirt, all the stuff. So I'm frantically thinking, I would say, I'm not religious, but I would say, God, give me the strength and the wit to capture this for the listener. That's my job, So mind is buzzing and what am I seeing? How can I get this for the listener? I'm working for the listener. So even little, interjections like I was the rocket in the hallway. I don't see rockets around here. You know, they don't, you know, I don't see them every day. It was new to me, all this stuff. And then we go down and I'm, you know, to this darkness, and then we have a problem because he's got an accent, and, well, I have an accent, he has an accent, and I can't, I've got the mic, and, you know, I need to get as close to his chops as I can. I'm getting in almost right to the side of his face here, right? Because I need is the most clear voice that I can get in this now boomy acoustic, which is this basement. So, and it's dark, I can't even see his face. So I'm kind of, you know, and I didn't use headphones, I didn't in those days. It was an omnidirectional mic, and you know, it's pretty forgiving. Anyway, so there's all of that going on, and then if you want to ask a question and you've got somebody mic'd to within an inch of their chops, you've got to try and do this and blah, blah, blah. So it's a tricky recording situation, and we only have this little flashlight or torch. I used his language, the English version of that, because that's what he calls it. And you're sort of flashing the torch around, and you heard what you heard. At the end, I felt we were in some kind of a mausoleum or something, almost not like a shrine, that's not the right word, but something, an awful place. So I actually felt we should leave. He wasn't madly keen to leave, if I remember. He was quite okay with the whole thing. But I was actually looking, and you heard it, on the fly to see if I could find a way of ending the scene. So that sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But so a scene, it doesn't just end like you chop a knife in the sausage and it just, you know, that's it. I mean, we have this storytelling urge to find an ending, and there's a difference between an end and an ending. So you heard it, my attempt, a kind of a summary thing, 8 years of killing in this room. Was what I actually came up with. And he said, yes, 8 years of killing in this room. And I said, let's leave. And he said, no, it's fine. Okay, it's fine, we'll leave. Yeah. And that was that. And you can, I'm not sure how clear we can hear it, because the acoustic in the first part, the first scene in the upstairs is fairly echoey too. And on these speakers, you can hear a certain bloom of an echo come upon the sound, I think. You did, yes. It's there. So that's again something we don't often use, I think, in our pieces, is the sound of space, the sound of the space. You have to be careful with it, because we're kind of trained to record everybody so close so that you can hear what they're saying clearly in a car driving on the highway at 60 miles an hour. I mean, that's what we're all told to do, but that's fine. And I know the problems of this, you know, that every time you leave sound and quietness and small sounds, the compressor and the CVC system will push it up, and it makes a mess of the mix that you've tried to create. It's less on FM now than it used to be in the old days on AM, when you would be heartbroken to hear the mutilation of the mix that you did in the studio. But the sound of space is so, if it's a telling sound or it's relevant to the story, it's so important. And we don't use it much, so it's there in spades, the whole thing. So there's a sense of atmosphere and place and everything, I think. Yeah, so that's basically, you're a scene hunter. I go into these things like a hunter. I'm not a hunter. I never killed anything in my life. I get my meat at Loblaws, but I'm a scene hunter, and I don't like to come back without good stuff.